to this webinar session, which we've got our bios on the screen, so I'm not going to go all through that and the usual introduction stuff. You can read all that. But what I really want to impress upon you today is that what you're about to hear, what you're about to learn, and you're going to hear from Matthew in a moment, this is real game-changing stuff. Okay, so this is just not some another webinar about a topic. This is a topic particularly about attrition. We're going to cover mostly attrition. We are going to take some of those other challenges as well around performance and productivity and morale. They're all going to come into it. But this is real, as I say, this is a real game changer. So we've got some great content for you. It's half an hour. The 5 minutes at the end is just as important as the 5 minutes at the beginning. So, classically, we're going to offer you a real incentive to stay with us all the way through, because we want you to be with us all the way through to hear this stuff. And we're going to have an incredible special offer at the end for those that that can stay with us all the way to then. So I really hope that you're able to do that. And what we're going to do is make this as interactive as we possibly can. So what we will do is, if you type questions in the box, please do it as we go along. I may not be able to pick questions up as we go, but I will certainly at least pick a few up towards the end of the session. So type questions in, please, as we go. And we've got a couple of polls as well that we'll be having along the way. But without further ado, let's get stuck in. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you, Rob. Good afternoon.
Okay, so afternoon. So look, I'm sure everyone's gathered by now that the performance tools we're talking about, that they're based on and they use predictive analytics. That's, we think, is or we know is changing the game within call center operations. But so I want to take you back, Matthew, because you're kind of the pioneer in this particular area, going back. But when did it first dawn upon you that there was a problem that predictive analytics could solve?
Yeah, okay, thanks for making me feel old, but yeah, probably around 12 years ago. I'm going to cast your mind back, and I'm hoping most people probably have heard of the Minority Report, which is a Hollywood blockbuster, stars Tom Cruise, and basically the premise behind it was very much that if you could predict future crimes that were going to happen, murders or whatever, the actual police went and actually arrested those people before it happened. So in line with that, the weekend after, I saw that at the weekend, on the Monday I went in and I had a really great employee. I was actually working for Ceridian at the time as one of their implementation managers. And a guy called Simon Clark, remember him well, fantastic performer, he'd been with me a couple of years. I actually got that dreaded sort of resignation letter on the desk, which I just did not expect. It was sort of so out of the blue, never thought it was going to happen. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call have at least experienced that at least once, unfortunately. So I sort of thought, oh, wouldn't it be great, that film I saw at the weekend, would be great if I actually could start doing that. And that sort of sparked a little idea. And on from that, I guess, 10 years later, 12 years later, well, 2 years later I started the company, and 10 years later I've been to a fair few projects, so the likes of AXA, Legal & General, G4S, those sorts of companies who've done quite a few things using the thing that we're going to talk about, the whole piece around predictive analytics.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's great. So you've talked about some of the companies and the projects you've been involved with, Matthew, and I'm sure the audience would like you to share with them. I mean, tell us about some of the problems you've encountered at those organisations, because I think some of these might resonate with the audience, and some common themes therein.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I tended to find, and obviously this is very much focused towards the call centre, service centre. So we move on to the slide here. So moving on to the theme of keeping the theme of crimes, the crimes of attrition. There are 6 or 7 key things that seem to happen for all organisations where attrition was occurring was quite high. The disruption, the day-to-day disruption of actually losing people, being understaffed, still having to answer the same amount of phones, same amount of calls, taking the same amount of sales. The cost of that, not only because of lost sales, but actually having to recruit people behind people as well. Finding the actual replacements in a sort of tough world where there's only a certain amount of people you can get in so quickly. The amount of management time that's being spent on doing that, and managing poor performance and managing absence. The knock-on effect, so not having to be at a desk. What does that mean? Well, all the other people in the team suffer because of it. And now obviously the final piece around is actually missing the most important bit, which is the KPIs, the business life and blood, if you like. So that's not hitting your sales target, your customer care scores going through the roof, not doing first-time resolution so quickly, average handling time starting to suffer, number of call rings, all that sort of stuff. So these are very, very commonly found as if where attrition was higher than you'd expect.
Yeah, and I think hopefully I say that does resonate with a few people on the call. In fact, let's do our first poll around that, guys. If you're there, let's have a look at this in terms of this poll that you should be able to get up on your screen now. Okay, we're getting the poll up.
It's on the screen, Rob.
We got it, have we? Okay, great. So we've got it on the screen. So if we could just hit this, where do you think in this poll, well, the worst thing about attrition, is it the cost of hire, not hitting KPIs? Is it the disruption? Is it or the training management costs? Just one of these. Let's have a look at what we've got. Okay, good. I think we just got nearly all of you voted. A few more just to come in. Let's have a look at this. Okay, well, look. Oh, I still have a couple more coming. We're up to 75% voted. Look, okay, I'm going to close the poll off now. Let's have a quick look at the results. Let's have a look. Can you see those results?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so there's a sort of a dead heat there, which is very interesting. It's the wasted time and investment in the training and the management overheads, and not hitting the KPIs. But I think they're all kind of quite level, really. The cost of rehiring doesn't seem to be such a big deal for people. Finding the right replacement. So I think these things are all tied in. But so thanks very much, everyone, for that. What I really want to understand, I guess, then, Matthew, in layman's terms, for the audience we've got here, you talked about some of those problems and some of those common things that everyone's got, and I know it's painful for people, but in layman's terms, then, how do you, or did you, or have you in those organisations solve that attrition problem? Give us that in layman's terms so the audience can understand.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to keep it really simple, and again, in the point of in the context of predictive analytics, which I will explain in a moment, there's three key areas, three components of the solution that we found over the last 10 years. We've implemented various systems and solutions and tools. And they're going to be obvious, but I'll come back to them why they're special as well. So first one is you actually recruit to retain. It's not just about performance. You have to have that additional layer of actually, when you think about good hires, what do they actually look like? So we say they've got to be productive, they've got to stay, they've also got to be with low absence, i.e. they've got to be there more often than not. The second one is be able to spot leavers before they actually leave, which is an obvious thing to say, and this absolutely resonated with me when I talked about my friend Simon Clark all those years ago. If I'd known he was going to leave within 3 months, 6 months or whatever, then I probably could have done something about it. But we go one step further than that, which I'll talk about in a moment as well. The final one piece of the jigsaw, if you like, is to actually make the data you collect on a day-to-day basis in the recruitment in HR and talent and all the other systems, people-related systems you have in the organisation, and make it work that little bit harder. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this one today because that's an entire subject in itself. The sort of things we find is that, one of the key findings we tend to find is that things like averages, they actually hide a multitude of sins. So if I said your average absence attrition rate was, I don't know, say 20%, 30%, whatever the case may be, that may be okay. That may be a sort of benchmark you would aspire to. If I said, but in location A it's 10% and location B it's 90%, and overall it's only 30%, you've got a big problem you don't know about. And that's obviously that is an extreme example, but you get the idea. Using that data, and we can come back to this theme slightly later in a slightly different context, just to sort of give you a real illustration behind it as well.
Okay, right. So these are the key things we look at. So recruit to retain. Can you expand firstly on that kind of whole recruitment side? Because this is key, right?
It is. It's interesting the poll we've just had. I think probably most people on this call will have metrics like cost of hire and time to hire. And, they've been driven to actually reduce those in both areas because you've got to get people in, you've got to get them cheaply. However, I challenge that as a total concept. Getting people in quickly and cheaply is great, but if they leave after 2 minutes, or they're poor performers, or they're never there because they're always absent, massively false economy, because wouldn't it be better to get somebody who might stay who is a great performer, who's absent. Yeah, all those things we talked about, the idea of a good hire.
So look, expand on that good hire thing for us then if you would, Matthew, just for the audience. Expand on what do you mean by good hire?
Yeah, I will. I mean, if I step this back a little bit, when we think of good hires, we come to a hire and we say, well, we're going to hire somebody. I think, and I don't think I'm alone with this, there's the concept of you think around the team that you already have, and you think, oh, I'd love to recruit somebody just like John or Mary or Phil. Definitely not Albert, don't like Albert, but those three, if I could find three of those. Now let's go back to the idea that, as an HR generally have, is that the idea of an ideal hire. Well, I've just proved to you there in one single statement, there are three ideal hires. So actually, when we talk about the good hire, what we do is we want to take in all those different types of concepts. There are multiples. And the key attributes, we'll keep pushing this home, the idea of performance, absence and tenure. We bring in performance data, we bring in absence data, we bring in attrition rates and headcount type data, and actually bring that into one single place. And sometimes, performance data is a really interesting point as well. So performance data may be a simple, would I hire this person again? Yes, no. That is a piece of performance data we could use. Or it could be your appraisal system. So if you have a ranking of 1 to 5 or whatever it is at the end of the year that you do, that's useful as well. In the call center environment, the service center environment, it's usually even better because you're awash with metrics generally. So you'll have things like average handling time, you'll have things like first-time resolution rates, you'll have things like customer care scores, sales figures. There is just an awash there that says what is good performance. Well, do you want the upper quartile of each one of those? All of a sudden you've got a very, very powerful performance metric. Combine it with that absence data, combine it with that attrition data, all of a sudden you can get somebody who's going to be there and is going to perform.
Okay, so but I need this sort of demystifying for me, if you will, Matthew, because I kind of get all these kind of concepts, but can you sort of explain it in sort of again in layman's terms how this, just demystify this whole thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the sort of biggest jump, and I'm going to talk about the predictive hire tool for one moment, which is obviously predicting who you should hire quite clearly. Predictive analytics is an absolutely brilliant piece of technology. It is superb. And then why is it different to sort of normal computers? You sort of associate computers with being very logical. It's a few calculations here and there. What predictive allows us to do is use something called fuzzy logic. And what that's great is because it's pattern matching. It's looking at different attributes all at the same time. What I've just said about the ideal hire, well, there are multiple of them. So that's why it's a perfect match between predictive and hiring. Fuzzy logic allows us to do that. So that's the first big point. The second point, it continually learns. So you keep feeding it more data, which is very easily done once you start it, then it will improve its accuracy. And you'll see a massive improvement over a period of time. We're going to talk about that in a moment later on in the webinar. The final piece, zero bias, well, we all know we need to do that, but think about a computer not really totally understanding what a piece of data means, i.e., if it saw something like a gender, it doesn't really know what a gender is, it just knows it as a piece of data. It has no bias, zero bias, and that's really important, obviously, especially in this sort of recruitment. It demystifies and debunks some of the sort of in-held beliefs of companies sometimes. Again, we come across this quite often where, we know the profile of a good hire, we prove absolutely that's the wrong profile to actually go for because, again, our predictive hire tool proves that to them as well.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, there is a deal of complexity here, and obviously, I think it'd be a topic all on its own and another day. I mean, we can take some stuff offline, but if people have got questions, please do put in the box. But I mean, look, it does sound quite complex, has to be said. But in practice, how do you set this up, or how easy or hard is it to set up? Can you give us an idea of how to set this up, Matthew?
Yeah, again, I keep holding on about our 10 years of experience, but I guess when we first started doing this, it was incredibly complex. We made it too complex, frankly. So we've learned over a period of time how to make this much easier. And I've put it down to 5 key steps, almost for getting your predictive engine started here. The first thing is we've talked about what is a good hire, and if you've got different roles, there have different definitions of good hires. We then profile the existing employees, bring in data about them that we know, and if there's data missing, we can bring that in as well. And then, I mean, it's very similar for us. We just throw this data at the predictive tool. It trains itself. It goes and learns from that data. It has the idea of no preconceptions. We don't touch it. It is purely throwing the data at it. It works it all out for us, and we test it to make sure it's accurate. We then go live. And again, key thing that I'll keep repeating as well, because this makes people nervous, This is a recommendation. It will recommend whether you should hire somebody. Clearly, you can go against that recommendation. It's purely trying to make a very, very small shortlist for you to go and interview if you still want to do that. Okay. As we've gone live, we'll still collect the data and we will continually learn. And this is a key thing. So generally when you find accuracy starts a little bit lower, it will grow as the data starts piling on data, and it will get very, very accurate. It's very clear it is working.
Yeah, but I mean, Michael has just asked a question actually about, what about human judgment? So I'm glad you've covered that that off, Matthew, in terms of, we're not saying that, or you're not saying that you replace human judgment completely, right? That's something that this just supports the thing. Okay, so when you say it's clear, what do you mean? How clear is it, Matthew, that it's doing what it should be doing? I mean,
we can, again, we're very strong. You'd be surprised to hear very strong supporters of using metrics to do the sort of before and afters. But what I thought I'd do, rather than just say, of course it works, please believe me, let me bring up a case study, first case study we've got. And this is for a Legal & General. I'm sure you've heard of Legal & General in the past. They've been around for 180, 200 years, I think, something like that. They've got more assets than Greece, which I'm not sure whether that's true, but that's the real one. But they're sort of very, they've been around for a long time, very, very successful company, and therefore they're sort of risk averse in a way. They don't like a change unless they can actually believe the change. So introducing something like this in L&G was an incredible challenge. So you should have on your screens hopefully pictures of 5 people that I'm challenging you to say, okay, who do you think L&G would have hired in the customer services as a customer services agent in the past? Now, if you want to put your answers in there, that's a quick unofficial straw poll. I'd love to, but I think we're probably a little bit short of time. But if you can see, the likes of Jeff and Wendy. Jeff has been in financial service industry. Wendy's worked in the customer centre. Alan's an unemployed postman. Steve's in a call centre. As you can see, there's a general theme there.
Come on, Matthew. We just got time. Come on, people. Give us type in the box. Who do you think they hired out of these 5 people? Come on, we just got time for that. I can get a few people to type in. Guess which one it was. Okay,
Can I reveal?
Go on then.
It is probably the not one out ever, frankly. I'll tell you, they actually hired all of these people. The difference was in the past, because of their risk averseness, they would not have gone for somebody without the experience. So poor old Alan would not have been hired in the past. Using this technology, they did. And the second pertinent fact is he went on to be the sort of annual award of Customer Service Agent of the Year. Or the equivalent, he actually won that. They would not have hired somebody, not because he wears a Siberia t-shirt, I don't want to offend anybody who has one of those on this webinar, but just because not the sort of profile of the person we would normally look at. So that was a sort of trying to bring it down to a very real and single event. If I can look at the overall results now, I'm going to bring these up in front of you. So we measured the good hires before we started. It rose from 44%. And if you think 44%, you're actually more accurate flicking a coin. It was that inaccurate because they weren't retaining people. They were not as good hires as they wanted to. It wasn't customer focused. But we managed to do all that within 6 months. 6 months. So massive change. We reduced attrition by 3.5%. Absence went down by 14%. Customer service actually went up 70%. And what we found was that the new recruits, if you like, the new cohorts, was actually influencing the existing employees to perform better as well. It was almost like a bit of a kick up the backside almost. Time to hire actually reduced in the end. We thought it would go up because it would be a bit more selective, but because the whole thing that we now could actually recruit Alan and Postman as opposed to looking at different call centres, particularly if you're sort of in these guys are in the middle of Cardiff where there's quite a few call centres all vying for the same people. L&G actually had the choice to actually go and go for new people, if you like, a much bigger talent pool. And then finally, the time spent by managers actually interviewing reduced drastically at the end there as well. They were interviewing lots. Again, anecdotally, L&G used to, still do, I believe, recruit in cohorts. So if they had a cohort of wanting 12 people to hire 12 people, they'd have 20 or 30 people coming for interviews. On one occasion, and this is only one occasion, I say it's anecdotal, so pinch of salt stuff, but they had 11 roles, they got 12 people in, and they actually hired 12 people. All candidates were so good they did not want to reject any of them, and they made space for the extra person. I guess the key thing is, if you're talking to your FDs and want to get some buy-in, then how much is this going to cost? How much is it going to save? Well, we actually got L&G's finance people to actually look at this. We proposed some stuff, it came backwards and forwards. We all agreed in the end that this probably saved around £3.5 million a year, so about 10 million in 3 years, a 3-year period. And that was through reduced attrition, better productivity, lower absence, less manager time, all that sort of stuff.
Wow, I mean yeah. So for those of you on here, I mean, look at those numbers. They are a phenomenal sort of savings that can be made through that these performance tools. So, that's really great. I tell you what, I think it's now time. Let's get another poll on the go if we may, and see if we can just get you another bit of participation from you. Let me just get this one up. Let's launch this. Okay, can we see the poll?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what we're asking you guys, if you wouldn't mind, let's get in. Which of these will have the biggest impact on your key performance indicators? If you could vote for one of these, would it be getting attrition down by 10%, or absence down by 10, or is it the cost of hire by 10%, time to hire down, or the quality of hire? So, what would be the biggest impact, do you think? If you could just get in there and let me know, and just get that vote going. Just wait for a few more votes there, and I'll share the results with you shortly. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna call time on that now. So thanks to everyone that's participated. So I think this is probably, can you see that, Matthew?
You can, yes. Yep.
I think that's probably what we were expecting, wasn't it? It's quite interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, attrition being the highest again, closely followed by quality of hire. So, I mean, again, I'd say that's reflected. I'm sure it is with the people you talk to as well, Rob. That a lot of people are saying we've got an attrition problem, quality of hire. It is cyclical. I think attrition wasn't such a problem a little while back. I think it's now a growing problem again.
I think it's remained a problem from what I tell from the people I'm working with, but but it's certainly, I think it's on the rise again. So it's probably why we've got so many people interested in this today. So
there's zero on cost of hire. I think that's what struck me there as well, which is so good to hear, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So okay, so look, we know now that our new recruits are now less likely to leave. We managed to get that part right, if you like. But now about the whole retaining the staff you mentioned. There's a tool for that as well.
Yeah, this is the second tool, which is obviously another key part of the solution. We're now recruiting good people that are actually going to stay a lot longer, but we're still losing people. So how can we actually slow that down too? Or slow down is probably the best hope we've got. And this comes in 2 parts. So there's something called a predictive lever, which is as it sounds, but also something called a predictive retainer. I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of both of those. So the predictive lever, that gives you a very early heads up on who's going to leave. So in my the example I talked about, my Simon Clark guy leaving rather than expected, I would have known 3 to 6 months in advance he was going to leave. I'm going to illustrate a little bit about that, one of the key concepts around this. But it goes down to the individual. It can be anywhere between 3 to 12 months in advance. And probably the biggest thing which most people will ask me, and I may as well knock it off now, is yes, it uses ordinary HR type data. There's no specific thing you need to collect in addition to what you would probably normally collect in your systems already. So the HR type data, the absence type data, the performance type data, the time work, the salary data, all that sort of stuff is the sort of things that will do this. And what we do is 2 things. Firstly, we combine the data to make it a little bit smarter. So if you look at this chart on your screen now, yes it is on your screen, you can see on the left hand side, if it's on that side they're more likely to leave, if it's on the right hand side they're less likely to leave. So just a sort of a very simple chart just to show off. So you look at absence at the top there, it's increasing. So I think most of us would sort of recognise if somebody's started to go off more regularly, they probably are more likely to leave than less to leave. This actually quantifies it for you as well. There's a few others down there, so high pay quartile, you're less likely to leave. Again, I think that's pretty obvious, it's pretty intuitive to us, but again, tracking that for a large call centre is very difficult to understand. Where it gets a bit more interesting, and we say we make the data work a little bit harder. So we know whether the performance of somebody, so we've got the low performer in there, But we also can work out quite simply, and it frustrates the hell out of me that people don't do this normally. We can actually say whether they're in a low-performing team and what that's, what impact that has as well. In this case, it's quite high. If you look a little bit further down, I'm going to try my yellow market here, but I'm not sure. Yeah, there we go. Down here, we've got manager is a low performer as well. I think you all intuitively know if you've got a poor manager, you're more likely to leave as well. But again, we quantify that. If you're stressed as well, we work that out. So that's the first piece. Let's make the data work a little bit harder. But then we use the predictive side, and this is the fuzzy logic again. It's spotting the patterns of people leaving, learning from the past so it can predict for the future. Very, very simple to actually go forward.
Okay. So, but you managed to you'll be able to work out the best way of actually retaining someone. Is that?
Yeah, this is a sort of, so we know it down to the individual who's going to leave, so that's great news, and we can probably make some assumptions about how we might retain them. We take it a little bit further. It's the second part of the jigsaw. So again, I'm going to just put something on the screen to sort of aid the explanation a little bit here. Hopefully people can see that now. So this is, rather than predict why people are going to leave, which is might be useful, we predict how you might retain people. It's slightly the other way around. They are different, clearly. So on the chart you can see in front of you now, your first column, number 2, is no action, i.e. they're not going to leave, or they are, we don't really care because they're low performers. It's almost like that. Second one, there are no options, i.e. whatever we do, the risk of them leaving, frankly, is not going to go down low enough that it's worth us doing in the case of obviously the predictions. The third one, pay rises, this is always a favourite, isn't it? Give people a pay rise, they're more likely to stay. Yeah, well, great. But if I give you, you're about to leave and I gave you a 2% pay rise, you'd probably tell me where to go. If I gave you 50%, you may stay. You might be a bit more interested. Somewhere in between those two numbers, you'd actually, is the optimum. Optimum in the sense that I will be more likely to retain you, and optimum in the sense that it's not costing the company an absolute fortune to retain you as well. So that it gets down to that sort of level. I want to switch forward now to this one here, the development intervention. I'll just give you a little bit of history behind this. We were asked by a company a little while back that spent an awful lot of money on their development interventions, or training as we most know it most as, and said that, okay, could you tell us how we can make best use of this and what effect it's having on performance and how we can maximise that. Unfortunately, after many months of trying, we couldn't prove it made any difference on performance whatsoever, which possibly was I have no idea why, but what we did find was that it was actually a great tool to actually retain people, retain you sort of. And again, I relate this to Simon Clark. If only I'd put him on that training course he'd asked for a few months back, he probably would have been still around today. But if you think about that, if you spend 250 quid, 500 quid on a training course, send somebody on a training course, and they stay for 6 months, 12 months, whatever the case may be, longer than you expected them to. What is the cost of recruitment? Well, people say anywhere between 1,000 to 5,000, and I'm sure somewhere in the middle is about right. So actually saves money and retains those staff you wanted just with a small one-off investment of 250, 500 quid. It's a massive sort of incentivizer as well. And you can see the other two on the end there around changing a team manager, which again I'm sure we've heard anecdotal stuff around that, and obviously they're around stress counselling as well.
Okay, we're going to have to move on, Matthew, because I'm very aware that we're kind of getting short of time. A couple of questions I have, though, before I go to the audience. So get ready with your questions. If you haven't answered them already, please get some in the box here for Matthew. But, I mean, it all looks great. So is the predictive tool, is it always right? Is it always right?
I wish I could say yes, but unfortunately not. It's never 100%. I mean, again, humans, are they 100% predictable? I definitely know that's the case. I've got two daughters which tell me that all the time. But, I mean, the thing is, as long as it is significantly more accurate than the human person doing it or other systems doing it, then it's an advantage. And the sort of typical accuracy level we get to is somewhere between 70 and 80%. You saw LNG was 84, but between 70 and 80. It starts off lower quite often, so you may only be 65% to start off with, but as you feed it more data, as it learns about the data, the outcomes you're wanting, it actually gets more and more accurate. So again, if I could say to you, 75% of the time I'd actually get the people you're hiring to they stay there longer, they're low absence, they're high performers. I think most people would have to bite my arm off to do that. Okay.
I'm going to pick up, because we're running out of time, questions for the audience, and it kind of goes into another question that I've got. But it says predictive analytics. Predictive analytics. You say that software continues to learn. What is the starting point? Does the software require data from the users companies before it can be used in a meaningful way?
I'm going to answer that as a depends answer. Now, we have, as a bootstrap, we have some roles defined for call centres which will be have some accuracy. We much prefer that we actually take data from each client, because each client varies. You have different types of roles, different environments they work in. So our recommendation would always be, I tell you what, we've got these, but we'd much prefer, for accuracy reasons, albeit take a little bit extra time, but you'll get more payback by doing it around. So yes, we would like to say, give us some data, we'll prove to you it works, and you know that's by far the better way.
Okay, here's a classic that I think you probably would have we've come across here. So what are the costs involved?
Oh yes, I'll let you answer that one as well, Rob, obviously for obvious reasons. But what we tend to find, and I'm afraid it's one of those various type answers, and we can do cost calculators, return on investments, all those sorts of things at an individual level. But a sort of rule of thumb, if you're doing around 100 hires a year, if we save 5 people, then we would have paid for all the costs for doing this. This is, again, it's a really rule of thumb, frankly, but that gives you an idea at least.
Okay.
If you're a larger organisation with more hires, the actual number is proportionally less.
Yeah, I mean, I think the business case is kind of really stacks up, and just, I mean, we include it in our recruitment service because we know it makes sense, and that just shows you the cost can't be too high, as we wouldn't be able to do that. So, yeah, if you get recruitment for us, we include the predictive piece. Do the metrics change if you split between outsourced and insourced call centres?
The metrics in the sense of the outcome metrics, or sorry, I shouldn't be asking the question. I'll try and answer it instead. Essentially, the fuzzy logic predictive engines don't really care. So you could have 2 predictive engines, one for insource, one for outsource. So if they do change, and my experience is that they don't specifically do so, then yes. But we have some organisations which have almost measure the sales of an outsourced organisation versus their insourced, and they predict differently in that way. So the answer is it still will work. It's just a decision, and we try, when we do the implementations, we try and take the sort of wisdom of the HR and the business teams within the organisation and use that in the best way we can. There is certain things, nuances and things we've learnt in the past, which if we'd only talked to HR a little bit more, we would have been able to present the data in a slightly different way. And an example I'll give you, real example I'll give you as well. We did a project where there was multiple locations for a particular, which is obviously quite common for a particular company. It's the same company, it was virtually the same roles, if not the same roles, but the profiles of a good hire and the profiles of the people and the cultural was what we found out at the end was entirely different between the different locations. And we learned from that, and nowadays we will actually have a consultation with the HR guys to really understand exactly is there anything we should be aware of to actually build into the predictive engines.
Okay, look, Matthew, look, again, I'm really conscious of time. I know we've just slightly run over, so I think we need to get to the point that we're wrapping up. And so thank you for your questions. If we haven't answered them, I will get back to you. Don't worry, I will pick up all the questions afterwards and we'll talk to you. But I'm going to thank you for staying to the end of our half-an-hour presentation. It did feel that we were cramming a lot in, and that's because we were. But I did make a promise to you that if you were going to stay with me through to the end, and I'm glad to say many of you have, that in fact nearly all of you have, I'd have a special offer for you. Actually, I think it's an unbelievable offer. What we're going to do is, in fact, we're going to predict between Activate and LBA. We've got a special offer. We're going to predict 50 hires for free for you. So that will be one company. Now, it's going to be out of the hat, obviously, because we can't do this for everyone, but you've stayed to the end, so you deserve that opportunity. And we're going to do it for free. 50 hires in terms of we'll run them through the predictive engine and demonstrate to you the capabilities we've got, and that's going to be completely free. So look, it's no. If you throw your name in the hat, it's not compulsory. There might be reasons you can't do it. Might be reasons we can't do it, and we'll obviously go through that in detail. We're not going to go on about that now, but if you drop an email to that email address, I can see one or two of you have done that already. Thank you. We're going to draw it out of hat. The winner will be announced, obviously, in a few days' time or in a day or two's time, and we'll do that for you. So Thank you for that, and thank you for taking part. Matthew, it's time to wrap up. It's been a great session. But is there anything more, any further thoughts, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, that's great. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, obviously for the invite and for the attendance. And as I say, I can see quite a lot of people here. If there's any, I've tried coming off as well about, and if there's any questions about the sort of magic box technology, please ask. Not enough time to do it on this sort of call, and probably bore most of you silly. But if there's any questions, feel free again. If you email Rob, I'm sure they'll get through to me.
Definitely, we'll take those between them. So look, again, I'm going to wrap up now. Thanks so much for joining us. You know, this stuff is here now. It's affordable. It's technology that's available right now, and it's a game changer. It's going to change everything we know about call centre in terms of some of the staffing issues and attrition, performance, all of those things. And companies are using this stuff now. It's maybe a bit of a slow burner, but it's out there and it's going to happen. So any questions about this, you want to find out more about this, you've got my email address, drop a line to me and I'll be delighted to take any further questions or give you any more information you need. With that said, I'm going to say thank you so much to my guest speaker today, Matthew Lymbery. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been fantastic and very insightful, I hope. Goodbye to everyone. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to speak to you all very soon indeed. Thank you and goodbye.